Okay, we've all been there, right? You sit down, you're ready to go, ready to finally tackle that big project, and then you feel it. This powerful, almost physical resistance that pulls you away from your work and straight toward your phone. So, what is going on there? Yeah, it feels physical, doesn't it? It's like this painful friction in your brain that makes focusing feel literally impossible. So you grab your phone for, just a second, and suddenly an hour has vanished. Then comes the guilt trip. You call yourself lazy, undisciplined. But what if that whole story is just completely wrong? See, the real issue here isn't some flaw in your character, not at all. It's actually a conflict happening in your neurochemistry. Your brain has this ancient reward system, and it is just struggling to keep up in our modern, super high stimulation world. And honestly, just understanding that, well, that's the first step to actually fixing it. And believe it or not, neuroscience actually has a name for this exact feeling. It's called a dopamine prediction error. It's the fancy term for that biochemical tug-of-war in your brain that makes starting important tasks feel so incredibly difficult. To fix it, we first have to understand how we got here. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Our brains are basically hardwired to seek out rewards, and the chemical that drives that whole process is dopamine. Now, a lot of people think it's the pleasure chemical, but it's really the chemical of motivation. It's what gets you to act. The problem is, our modern world is just packed with things that hijack this system and crank it up to 11. So think about it this way. On one side, you have these high dopamine activities, things like scrolling social media, playing video games, eating sugary snacks that give you a massive instant reward for basically zero effort. And then way over on the other side, you have the low dopamine activities, like reading a book, writing a report, studying, actual work. The problem starts when our brain gets way too used to chasing those instant highs. And just look at the sheer scale of the difference here. It's wild. The dopamine hit from scrolling through a feed is massive, it's cheap, and it's fast. In comparison, the dopamine release you get from studying, well, it's tiny. Your brain is an efficiency machine, right? It wants the biggest bang for its buck. So which one do you think it's going to start to crave? But this is where the trap is. Okay, so when you constantly bombard your brain with these huge dopamine spikes, it does something smart to protect itself. It raises its baseline for what feels normal. And this right here illustrates the entire problem. Look where that studying bar is now. It's not just boring anymore, it is way, way below your brain's new minimum requirement for stimulation. It actually starts to register as painful. So let's be really clear about this. You are not broken. Your ability to focus hasn't just disappeared. Your brain has simply done what it does best. It has adapted. It's gotten used to an environment of constant, intense stimulation. But the good news is, just as it adapted upwards, we can absolutely help it adapt back down. So, the big question is, how do we lower that baseline and make normal work feel engaging again? Well, we need a practical dopamine reset. And don't worry, this isn't about becoming a monk or moving to a cave. It's about making a few simple, strategic changes. And it all starts with understanding one very critical moment. And this is that key moment. When you finally put the phone away to start that hard task, your brain just screams for stimulation. This discomfort, this mental itchiness, we're going to call it the agitation phase. And just giving it a name is incredibly powerful because most of us feel this, think I can't focus, and then we just give up. But if you know it's a predictable, temporary phase, you can push right through it. So here is the two-step plan. First, increase friction. Don't just put your phone down, put it in another room. Unplug the game console. Make those cheap dopamine hits harder to get. Second, you have to embrace the agitation. Expect that initial discomfort and be willing to just sit through it without caving. Seriously, stare at the wall for 5 minutes if you have to. And why is that first step, increasing friction, so effective? Well, it matters because it completely sidesteps the need for superhuman willpower. Behavioral psychology shows that if a habit takes just 20 extra seconds of effort to start, our chances of actually doing it plummet. By adding that tiny little delay, like having to walk to another room for your phone, you let your environment do all the hard work for you. So what does it actually feel like to push through? This timeline shows you exactly what to expect. The first 5 minutes, they are the absolute hardest. That is peak agitation. Your brain is throwing a tantrum, but just hold on. Between minutes 5 and 10, you'll feel that discomfort start to fade as your brain's baseline begins to settle. And after 10 minutes, that's when focus starts to feel almost automatic. You just have to survive those first 10 minutes. All of this leads to a really powerful shift in mindset. We've been trained to see boredom as the enemy, something to be eliminated at all costs. But what if boredom isn't the problem? What if it's actually the pathway? What if it's the state your brain needs to enter to make deep work possible again? This analogy just summarizes the entire struggle perfectly. Trying to force yourself to just focus when your dopamine baseline is through the roof is a losing battle. It's like trying to hear a whisper at a rock concert. The environment is simply too loud for the quiet work of concentration. You just can't win by shouting over the noise. So the crucial takeaway from all this is simple. Stop trying to muscle through it with willpower. Instead, get strategic. Increase the friction on your distractions, allow yourself to sit through that initial discomfort of boredom, and just give your brain a chance to reset. Your natural ability to focus is still in there, I promise. It's just waiting for the noise to die down. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What could you truly accomplish if that feeling of boredom became your tool instead of your enemy? By understanding your own neurochemistry, you really can win back your focus and finally get to work on the things that actually matter to you.